Welcome back to the channel, guys, and today, guys, I'm presenting the build guide for Shockwave Totem. Today we're going to be looking into the skills, what makes the build work, the items that we're going to be using, why we use Shockwave Totem over any other totem, and more. There will be timestamps in the video description, but also in the timeline in the video itself. If you feel you know some of the information that I'm about to explain already, feel free to skip to the timelines that interest you most. Without further ado, here comes the showcase first, and then we'll dive right into it, guys. Let's take a little look at the skills that we're using in this build. The skills that we're going to be using is Shockwave Totem and Time of Need. Right now, that's all we're using. Now we're going to explain why we use what we use and what the damage is. So once you put up your totems, each totem provides additional attack and cast speed through what we do on our tree. I'll explain that in a little bit. And that means with 4 totems up, you will be having over 75k DPS per one totem. That's over 300,000 damage, guys. Full screen clear, which is insane. So what we'll be doing is we have Shockwave Totem, we're linking that with Martial Tempo for additional attack speed, because the totems are not like PoE 1, they attack quite slowly. We will be using Overabundance, because yes, we do want 4 totems and not just 3 for extra coverage in situations like, I don't know, breaches, in situations like expeditions. It's just nice to have your entire screen explode before enemies even get to you. We are also using Inspiration because the cost of casting totems at level 39 is wild. You're looking at 1176 mana, which through blood magic we're converting to life, but even so, that would be way too much to regen. Now we're gonna show you guys how we maintain costs and how we are able to do this safely by looking at the tree later, but trust me, it'll work. After that, we're going to be using Brutality because we are doing pure physical damage. So 35% more physical damage is just too good to ignore. And obviously, because we are scaling AoE for safety and clear, we are going to be using Magnified Effect as well. The 40% more AoE is crucial to the build without using a shield or something else, just because it makes the build feel that much more safe. The other skill we're using is a bit of an active aura buff, whatever you want to call it. It is Time of Need. Every so many seconds it gives you extra life regeneration. We need all the sustain we can get. We are putting Vitality in there. We are putting Precision in there for some extra accuracy, because guys, the difference between a PoE 1 Shockwave Totem and a PoE 2 Shockwave Totem is, in PoE 1 it is a spell, meaning accuracy doesn't apply. In PoE 2, it is a attack, specifically a melee attack and a slam, meaning accuracy really does apply. The totem gathers its accuracy from the accuracy you have on your character. A lot of people don't know this, but there is a fairly good chance that if you click on this right little click here and you go to slam, that it does not show 100% chance to hit right over here. So if that doesn't show 100% but like 80% or 70%, the consistency of the build goes down a lot. So I highly advise you guys use Precision over here as well. The other thing I'm doing here is Fast Forward. A less skill effect duration would mean that the cooldown there, the 10.3 second duration between blessings, gets lowered. So you get more of those blessings. That's why we took that over there. Okay, next up guys, we're going to be taking a look at the gear that we are using, the choices that we're making for gear, and what to be very careful with when you do get certain pieces of gear. Now the way we scale the damage off of these Shockwave Totems is by scaling levels. Now you see me wield 2 pretty big two-handed hammers with +7 to level of all melee skills, and we are capable of doing that through Giant's Blood. Giant's Blood, though, has a pretty high cost, tripling the attribute requirements needed to wield the weapons. So before you buy those weapons, you have to do the calculations and kind of go in your mind, okay, can I wield these before you bother a trader for nothing, or actually clicking trade and losing the currency invested. Now, to be fair, it doesn't necessarily have to be a +7 to all melee skills. You are fine with a +5 or a +6. Just keep in mind, once you start lowering the levels to the skill, the damage goes down by a lot. So you want to maintain the highest possible levels on your weapons that you can get. Anything other than that on these weapons does not matter, other than making sockets into the weapons with a Artificer Orb that you can do, and putting in these that I don't have enough of, Stone Runes, for more stun build-up. That actually functions, but it's the only thing that functions on the weapon, because as you can see, the skill clearly states that it uses its own weapon in the bottom lines, meaning whatever else is on this weapon doesn't matter. All you need is low strength requirement and level scaling. With the theme of level scaling, we will look towards our amulet and our gloves as the only other 2 pieces that enable us to do some level scaling as well. Now, another couple of things that you will see here is there is mana on each of my pieces of gear. This stems from when I was using a methodology on this side of the tree, where I would convert certain amounts of mana cost to life cost. And I had a good balance between the amount of mana and life that I would lose. That is a bust. Don't do it, because the amount of investment that you'll be spending on your gear goes up dramatically. What we are going to be doing instead is using a hell of a lot of life regeneration rate with blood magic. We'll explain a little bit later on that as we go into the tree, but just know that the mana you see on each of these pieces of gear is completely useless. Instead, you will want things like increased armor on there to increase the amount of armor that you have on your gear. So to go over each piece of gear, and once again, just ignore the mana that's on there. We want a little bit of accuracy on our helmet, because like I explained, the accuracy carries over to your totems. We want resistances in accordance to get us to a little bit overcapped for elemental weakness maps, if you can, but just getting close enough to cap is going to be good as is. And we want a strength base with high armor. In that theme, we want a chest plate that has exactly the same, except there is one thing in here that's even more important than the amount of armor on there, and that is the life regeneration. And I'm not talking about the 11.1 in the bottom here, I'm talking about the generate 2 point something of life regenerated per second in flat percentage. That is going to be extremely important for scaling the life regeneration that we have, because as you can see, life regeneration rate is at 828 when the totems are up, and that's how we are able to keep up the totems at 706 life per cast. It's not a problem at all, because we regenerate more than the cost of the totems. And during the gameplay, this amount of regeneration obviously keeps you safe from degens, it keeps you safe from burning ground, it keeps you safe from small hits, because by the time they hit you again, you've already regenerated back up again. It is an extremely safe feeling setup. Taking a look at the rings, I've chosen for this ring, because once again, it has a little bit of accuracy rating as an implicit, high life, disregard the mana like I said, and it has triple res on fire, cold and chaos. Chaos resistance, this is not PoE 1 guys, is extremely important. Now you see my resistance is capped. It's gonna be difficult to do that, to be fair, because pieces with chaos resistance and other resistances on there are inherently quite expensive. My mantra here for you guys is more is better. So just try and get as close to that cap as you can, but do not think that running around with 0 chaos res or 10 or 20 is gonna keep you safe, because it's not gonna. The other ring that we have here, once again, accuracy rating is on there, disregard the mana, we got a high amount of life on there, resistances, and the gain life per enemy killed is useless here, but it happened to be on that ring. For the belt we've chosen for armor, a little bit of flat armor on there, high life. The flask mana recovery rate is useless with blood magic, but once again, chaos res and lightning res. The flat life regeneration is nice, but definitely not mandatory, but it's good to have that on there. For boots, we are always going to be choosing for a base with 30% movement speed. I would argue that even if the other stats on here are slightly worse, versus a 20% movement speed or a 30% movement speed boot, you will choose a 30% movement speed boot. Now, as for the resistances, I would argue that across your gear, it might actually be better to get higher resistances, so you don't have to socket in runes to get those resistances, because runes could be used for things like increase maximum life scaling percentage, which is very difficult to do in this game, right? We have guys running around with 10k energy shield, but life scaling is notoriously difficult. And once again, we're looking at resistances, resistances, resistances. Mana, disregard it. For the gloves, it is another piece that we can have accuracy on, so I highly recommend you do. And it is the piece that we are using to scale melee skills. Very important. Once again, mana not important, high life on there. Lightning resistance is very important on there. The leech is completely useless. The totems can't leech for us. For a charm, I would highly advise guys, we are going for a Investigator Stalling Charm. Now, the increased duration is very important, increased charges is important to use when you become frozen, because I don't think degens are too much of a problem. I don't think stuns are too much of a problem, because the ability that we have to avoid getting hit by melee is simple. We have full screen AoE, but sometimes a stray cold projectile might hit you, might freeze you, and I would highly recommend you use this charm over any other. The mana flask is a bit of a meme here, a medium mana flask, because we don't have any mana, so that was just a bit of a troll there. For the life flask, is very important that you go for a life flask where you remove 15% of life recovered from mana when used. Why? Because if you combine increased life recovered with remove 15% of life recovered from mana and you're using the blood magic on your tree, that just gives you that penalty for free with an insane amount of extra regeneration. So this is just a panic button, but realistically speaking, your regeneration should keep you safe. Alright guys, let's take a look at this beautiful tree. The developers of PoE 2 have definitely done a marvelous job of giving us a million options to build our character, a million different ways to do it. There really isn't any right way, I'm just showing you guys what I am doing with the build and the philosophy behind it. To give a bit of a short summary on this tree, there are about 5 themes you will notice throughout the tree. There is AoE scaling, there is life regeneration scaling, there is armor scaling, and there is strength scaling. Let's go for the armor scaling first, which I've already typed in. The armor scaling are the nodes over here. That's why we connect over here. It is these nodes over here that give you a little extra armor. And pretty much your Ascendancy over here and here that give you that extra armor from your equipped body armor. Combined with this enables us to get to the high armor of 13k that we have. Now, can you get much higher than that? Yes. Do you need it? We rarely get hit by physical damage anyway, so I would say no. The next one I'm going to show you guys is area of effect scaling that we're doing. So for the area of effect, it starts right away from the get-go. Here we have 12%, we have 16%, another 12%, you're looking at 40% over there already, and we haven't even gotten into the tree yet. So this is amazing for scaling that crazy AoE you guys saw on the showcase. Over here we got another 12%, 12%, 12%, and 15%. We are using a relatively cheap anointment over here. And when I say cheap, I was thinking about going for this anointment, but those grey little bastards, the sufferings, are like 120 exalts or 200 exalts each. So no, right? If you have it, fine, but for me that was a no-go. So I'm using the increased strength a little bit there, which gives you some life and the area of effect for attacks. And the other AoE scaling happens over here. 12%, 12%, 12%, 20%, 12%. So we are scaling huge amount of AoE, combining that with the magnified effect for a literal full screen safety clear. Now the other thing is life regeneration rate, because regeneration rate is going to help us sustain these totems at a cost of 706 life per totem. And as I've shown you guys before, we are regenerating 828 life per second, which is huge in this game. That's a quarter of your life per second that you're regenerating, helping immensely with degens, little hits and all that kind of stuff, so that you heal up before you get hit again. Regeneration starts at the start of the tree, right here. Now, there is a difference between the flat and the percentage regeneration rate. You need a combination of both. So on our armor, we've shown the implicit, the flat over there in percentage. You got the percentage here, the percentage here. You got percentage here, and then over here we scale regeneration rate percentage on top of that. That is what gets us to the crazy high regen that we have. There's another cluster over here that does the same. And you have 1% while you are stationary and an additional 1% while affected by any damaging ailments. So this 800 that you see over here will go up to close to probably 850, 860, a little bit more maybe if you're burning or something like that. Regeneration rate is top notch on this setup. Now the other one that I told you guys is Totem. So we scale anything that has to do with totems except for this, because I felt that the totem placement speed was enough. So using 4 nodes pretty much only to get the attack speed seemed ridiculous. So we're scaling this over here, and through scaling the nodes of small passives by 50% from hulking form, that means that we have 24% totem damage per small node, which is absolutely insane. Once again, we are using 4 totems. Totems themselves use scaling from various forms of damage. Keep in mind, guys, these are not spell totems like Path of Exile 1. So generic damage works, attack damage works, melee damage works because it's a melee totem, and totem damage works, and even area damage works. So these are the tags you need to keep in mind for scaling your totems and what works and what doesn't. The next cluster of totems is over here, and once again you'll see totem damage 24%, even more totem damage and attack and cast speed if you summoned a totem recently. Now we will always be summoning totems, that will always be active. The most important things here is just the number of totems. Over here we got a +1, over here we got a +1. Definitely you need those nodes to make this build feel as smooth as it does. And for the last thing that we're scaling here is strength. Now there are a couple of reasons we scale strength. We scale strength specifically for life and to be able to mess around with Giant's Blood. If you do not have enough strength, you won't be able to dual wield your weapons. And once again, I said this in the gear portion, make sure you do the calculations on what you can wield before you whisper a trader. Now you can mess around a little bit with these nodes. Equipment and skill gems have 6% reduced attribute requirements. You can use a couple of these, that's 3 of them, 18%, which could make the difference between just barely being able to use a somewhat higher strength requirement weapon, which could be Divine's cheaper, or needing a lower strength requirement weapon, which could be Divine's more expensive. So it's important to kind of mess around a little bit with the tree and with your strength and what you have to lower the cost of investment on the weapon, because as strength requirement goes down on that, the investment cost goes up. So this is pretty much the philosophy behind the tree. We are mixing a combination of armor, life regeneration rate, totem nodes, AoE nodes, and strength scaling. For the Ascendancy, I did the following. The first time I ascended on the first lap, I didn't take any of this. I took this one. 15% more maximum life during leveling feels much more safe than any of the other options. But once I got to my second lap, I removed these two and immediately went for this one, because just the scaling on the AoE, the scaling on the totem damage, gave me the coverage on the screen that felt like I didn't need as much life anymore. And keep in mind, you also scale strength, so you don't lose that much life when you make that choice. Now the third Ascendancy I did take back the mysterious lineage again for the extra life, and the fourth Ascendancy I went for Stone Skin, giving us that beautiful physical mitigation. Let's take a look at the jewels, which is the last portion of the tree and gear combined, and is as important as anything that we've shown so far. There is another way to scale more regeneration rate, and it is jewels. Now the reason we are pathing the way we are pathing is to just gain access to as many jewels as possible outside of just taking the nodes that we take. To that end, we have one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. So grand total of 6 jewels active, and those 6 jewels all follow the same basic principle of life regeneration rate, and either, here it comes, global physical damage, which scales your totems, totem damage, which scales totems, attack damage, which scales totems, AoE damage, which scales totems, and melee damage. So make sure when you search for jewels like this, you search for life regeneration rate as a stat, and then below that to a count 1 for the stats I just listed. Make sure every jewel has that. How much do these jewels matter? Let me show you guys what the practical effect on those jewels is. So keep a look at the life regeneration rate. We put our totem up, 828 with all the jewels that we have, and that means we can sustain. Now if we remove all these jewels from the tree, and I'll show you guys why we had to go this route when we go blood magic. Now we have 574, and look at my life, look at what it's doing. Like, it's just not gonna sustain. So you lose a hell of a lot of regen that way. So regen jewels are a core part of the build, and I would say absolutely mandatory unless you want to mess around with conversion tactics. Now conversion tactics, where you only convert a portion of the mana cost to life, works really well up to a point. The problem is you're going to be spending extra nodes over here to do that, right? The conversion tactics, and you will have to buy jewels that do a portion of their life converted to mana, and those are more expensive than the jewels I'm using right now as of the making of this video. So I hope this answers a little bit why we made the tree that we made, the options that we've chosen. If you disagree or anything like that, it is still a very new game. I'm not saying this is the best possible option, but it made sense to me to kind of compartmentalize the things I wanted from the build and look at each of the compartments on the tree and see a pathing for those compartments to generate the builds that you're looking at right here. That's kind of how I came to the choices that we came to on this setup. And thanks, by the way, for Trainee for the blood magic suggestion, because I was still messing around with, like we shown, the mana on the gear and all that kind of stuff to try and keep up. But the blood magic with even more life regeneration rate is the safer option, and it is the stronger option by far. So don't make the mistake I did, guys. Go for that right away. I want to showcase to you why we are using the Shockwave totem over any other totem choice in the game. The answer is simple. It is always preemptively covering your screen with defenses through damage. You're clearing the screen while you move continuously. Whether an enemy is near or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you are near or not, it doesn't matter. The other totems don't seem to want to do that. So let me show you what I mean. So I put these totems up at the edge of the screen, and all the way halfway across this screen, my totems are clearing enemies. Whether I'm there or whether I'm not there. Right, so let me show you guys that again. I can walk away and we still see the shockwave coming here. So you're clearing 2 screens away. The activation radius on these is absolutely crazy. Now here comes why I believe this to be the best totem. The AoE radius means that from the totem the distance is pretty much a screen, right? We've shown this before. It's screen height easily in terms of AoE. And they're always activating. There isn't a circumstance where they don't choose to shoot. They're just always doing that. So while you move, you have a continuous pulsating damage around you, keeping you safe. Let's take a look at, for instance, a Ancestral Totem with Molten Blast. So you put your Molten Blast down and guess what? Your totem is doing absolutely nothing. It needs enemies to target. Now, in the time that it needs enemies to target, this totem is already going bop, bop, bop. And if you put 2 of them down, which you are always doing left to right, bop, 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 it means you're going to be safe. Now, the same thing is true because it's not just Molten Burst. If you go for like an Earthquake totem, right? You put that totem down, and yes, it's awesome when it activates, but it's not activating. It needs something to activate. So by the time I'm moving over here, there could be an enemy over here, right in this corner, shooting projectiles at me, and I get hit. I don't want to get hit. I want to create a situation where getting hit is just not that obvious. So I'm creating these totems and always working within the shockwave of the totem. And you can see the combination of the high AoE, the high regen, like you've seen in the showcases, and just the fact that we're covering the screen with damage while we move through that area is what keeps us safe. And I believe therefore that using enough AoE scaling, using enough totem scaling, 4 totems not 3, is what keeps you safe with this choice versus other choices. If you have a different experience or you feel that there might be an option that I've overlooked, let me know in the comment sections below. Okay, next up guys, I'm going to be showing you a little bit about the gameplay, or how to play this safely, because we are not using any block or anything like that, so I want to show you guys how that is not a problem at all during your mapping. We're going to be doing a tier 16 map through doing a tier 15 with 76% more monster life, so this should be quite tanky, and a +1 level. Now the idea behind this is that we are constantly moving inside of our shockwave of our totems. You're gonna see the life regeneration rate at play here as well, and how that isn't an issue at all. So we're gonna be moving, as you see we're completely zoomed out, and all we do is kind of move in that shockwave. We never have to move back, we don't have to backtrack. If you see something like a rare or something approach you, you might want to roll out of the way, but realistically speaking, you have so much clear and coverage that you're never going to be worrying about anything at all. All you'll be doing is just gradually moving forward. You get hit, it doesn't really matter because we have so much regen, as you can see here, that we are moving forward. We're pretty much never going backward here at all. So moving forward is the play here. Keeping yourself in the radius of the shockwave totem is how you do it. It is also why I'm showing you guys on the tree the AoE scaling that we do. And by just simply moving forward and staying within the AoE of your shockwave, you are creating the safety that you need to survive here. It is that simple. Now this is an open map. I've showed you guys a little bit of the tier 18, a little bit more close type map. 76% increased monster life, not an issue at all. We're just blasting through this and it clears the entire screen. So yes, the costs are high, but the thing is that it really won't matter too much. You got a rare there. I'm just not going to ignore him. I'm just going to make sure that the other side of the map is safe and clear. And now you guys see why I'm not using any kind of block at all. Because, well, it's just not gonna happen that you need to block. The AoE takes care of these enemies before they get an attack off. Even if you have a tier 16 map like this, with monster life scaling, as you can see here. So you got a lot of monster life on here. You got an open map where they can approach you from every different side, which is, well, realistically the most dangerous for our build. We got hit there by something, but resistance is capped, 3.5k life, keeps you alive. No block needed, and we rarely die. I got this character to 91 pretty damn fast doing this. And all we do is just kind of move inside the Shockwave totem. Sometimes you move a little bit left or right. You see a rare, you know what, put a second totem there. And he's just gonna go boom, 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 boom. And that's that. It is that simple. I see a lot of guides out there with people saying endgame viable, and then they show like a tier 4 map. This is just actually a high tier map with extra monster life, and just like that you have it completed and you're ready to move on to the next map. Alright guys, it's been a bit of a long video, but I'm happy if you have watched it until the end. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did making it. Hope you'll enjoy playing this build as much as I do as well. If you have any questions or suggestions or things that you think that we could do better with this build, leave them under this video. Leave a comment, a like, subscribe guys, it really helps the channel grow. I'm gonna catch you guys live tomorrow. We'll be live again playing this build, so you guys can see it in action before you change into it if you want to. For now guys, thank you all for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one, alright? Have a good one guys.